Okay, this is what we're going to be making today. It's a retro 90s network TV graphic. Let's go ahead and get started. Come up to composition, new composition. We're going to make a real big, do the width at 3500 and the height at 3000. There's a reason for this. Set the FPS to 30 square pixels and then a duration of 15 seconds should be fine. Now we're going to do layer, new, camera. Set the focal length to 5142, real large. Hit OK, and then we'll twirl this open. And camera options, we'll do a zoom of 500,000, and then the focus distance also at 500,000, very large. Add a new null, layer new null object, and we're going to link the camera. You're going to grab the pick whip and link it to the null. We'll call this cam control. And then hit R for rotation, make sure it's a 3D layer. And for this rotation, for X rotation, we'll do 36. For the Y rotation, we'll do -20.3. And then for the Z rotation, we'll do 19. And make sure, since we're now 3D scene, that you're in the Cinema 4D render over here. And I would recommend bringing down the quality pretty low to like 10 or 15 or something, so we can move around the scene pretty easily. So yeah, the reason for these large numbers on this camera is that while it's not technically isometric view, it is a pretty close isometric view. And with the zoom and focal length like that, we're going to totally flatten the image and get rid of a lot of perspective, which is pretty much what's happening in this graphic. So let's go ahead and create our text. Grab the type tool. The font for this is Acumen Pro Extra Condensed Black Italic. This is an Adobe font, so you should be able to use it. I'm going to come here, we're going to do coming up. Next, this is size. The size is going to be at 280. And just for right now, turn off the cam control and the camera. So the font size is 280. The letter C will be 400. The U and the N are both at 350 here. And N are at 350, like that. And then this, everything after the C, we're going to set this, set all this to 0. And then, yeah, this baseline shift is going to be 14 for everything but the C. Right? Yep, there we go. We're going to center it, or just keep it left. And then for the position, this will be, make sure this is a 3D layer. This will be 1, 3, 6, 4, 8, 2, 9, and then -1, 0, 9, 3. And now, let's see if this does it right. Now turn on the cam and the camera. And that's close. We're going to go ahead and take it and just move it over to the top left here. Whatever your text is, move it to the top left. Make sure it stays in the composition. That works pretty well. And you'll notice here there's no rotation or anything on the text. All the angles that's happening here is from the camera and the cam control null. We'll go ahead and lock those down. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a bunch of elements in 3D space, and then we're going to composite all of them together in 2D space. That's how this is going to work. So, we're going to, this is our, we'll call this our front layer. We're going to duplicate this layer. Twirl it open, come to geometry options. We're going to add 35 to an extrusion depth, like that. We're going to duplicate this layer again. We're going to call this back. We're going to come down to geometry options, completely remove the extrusion depth, and then duplicate the back layer again. And we'll call this back depth, rename front 2 to front depth. And this back depth, under geometry options, crank it all the way up, the extrusion depth, all the way up to 1000. Now for this back layer, we need to see what's going on. So we're going to twirl it open, go to Animate, Front, Color, hit RGB, and we should have, there we go. Yep. So we're going to grab the back and the back depth. As you notice here, what we're basically creating is creating the front, which is this. We're creating the front depth, which is this blue extrusion. We're creating the back, which is this front part of the purple, and then the back depth, which is this rainbow here, right? So we're going to take the back and the back depth, and we need to push it away to give it a little bit of a gap here. So we're going to grab this Z, we're going to move it backwards. So you turn off the back depth, but make sure you grab both. Whoops. Keep the back on, there we go. But make sure you have both. And then we're just going to shift it just slightly off the front. So maybe something like that. Also, you're going to make sure that you want to bring your resolution down to quarter. These are big compositions working in 3D. We want to make sure you can move around pretty easily. All right. So now we're going to animate everything. And we're going to go to 1 second. Grab the P on all of these. Key it. Move the CTI to 0. And we can grab this all at once. And grab the Z and just push it back. Push it back, push it back. Keep pushing it back. Keep pushing it back to maybe there. The reason we're using these huge numbers and these large compositions is I don't know what your text is going to be, so I want to give you a lot of leeway so you don't have to come in and reanimate this like 4 or 5 times trying to get the positions right. That's why we're doing everything pretty large. So if we move, we have our, there you go, this is moving through 3D space. That looks great. We're going to this comp 1, we can bring it into tutorial here. We'll call this front. We're going to pre-compose the front depth, Shift Control C, call this front depth. Hit OK. Open it up, delete front depth from the front. And we also want to copy this cam control and camera over to front depth like this. We're going to take back, Shift Control C to pre-comp, call this back. Right, open it up, delete back from front, and grab the cam control and camera, copy it, and paste it in. Looks great. Grab the last one, back depth, Shift Control C, call it back depth. Hit OK, open it up, then delete it from the front comp, grab the cam control and camera, copy it, and paste it into back depth. So that looks pretty good. So let's start with the front depth. So the thing about 3D text layers and After Effects is that we can't add, the color controls are really limited. You can only do solid colors on these things. And we can't add layer styles directly to the text layer. So we have to, the workaround is to pre-compose it. So that's why we're pre-composing all of these. And then so just in this is we're going to deal with the 3D stuff, and then in other compositions that we'll create in the future, we'll add the layer styles and stuff. So for front depth, we've added the camera, we're going to do layer, new light. This is going to be a point light, and the intensity will be 455 with a radius of 1000 and fall off of inverse square clamped. Hit OK. And the reason we're adding these lights and specifically the depth comps is so we can bring up some of the edges on this, some of the edges on the 3D text. So bring up position, and we're going to change it to 1106, 1767, and -737. There you go. So maybe bring that up over here and over, and the Z. There we go, about right there. So my numbers turned out weren't totally right. So duplicate the point layer, light, and we're going to move it over and move it in some. Move this back a little bit. We can grab both of these intensities. We're trying to maintain some of the edges, so we're going to bring the intensity down. this up over here and back. We're just trying to get some even lighting specifically around these edges here. And we can, there we go. The front of this face isn't really, we're not worried about because it's going to be covered up by the front, this front here. So that looks okay. And because this is animated, we're going to need to duplicate these, move them down, and try to get them in another spot over here. Just so we get some edges. One of the things you can do when you're working with 3D is come to views, go to 4 views, and you can see where you're, there we go. So we grab these and we're gonna move them up and over and move them this way. Yeah, we're just looking to try and get some even lighting. Back to one view. That looks pretty good for right now. So now we have the lit up text. Okay, now we'll go to the back, and we don't need to do anything else to back. I don't think this is it. As long as we have the camera and the null in here, everything looks good. Go to back depth. We have the cam and the null, and we need to take this layer. You can only extrude to 1000, as you can tell from when we did it, so we're going to need to make the extrusion longer. So what we'll do is we'll duplicate the layer, move it down, come to position, get rid of the keyframe. We're going to link this, whoops, no, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to link this to the top layer, this back depth layer, and now we're going to take the Z arrow and just push it back. Push it back, duplicate it again, push it back some more. So we cover the gaps, and just for fun, we'll do it again. We'll push it back. There we go. And we'll create a new light. This is, let's see, intensity of 250. We'll see how it works out. Inverse square clamp, radius 1000. Hit OK. We're going to move it over somewhere around here. We can come here to 4 views like this. So see what we're doing. This camera up here should be top. There we go. Duplicate that point layer. I'm gonna move it over. So we get this side. Both of these we can turn down this idiot if it's blowing out. Right? Then we'll go ahead and duplicate these two, bring it down, and we're going to move it along the Z, lower, 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 somewhere around here. Grab everything and even turn down the intensity some more. Yeah, something like that. Come to active camera. Oops. That's right. Go to 1 view is what I want. There we go. Now we have some. We're basically looking for some somewhat even lighting here. Okay. So back depth is done. Now we're going to take the front depth, drop it into a new composition. Single composition. Hit OK. We're going to call this front final. This is where we do our layer styles. So we are going to take the front, right click, do layer styles, gradient overlay, go to edit gradient, and click on a knot. This first color is going to be EFEEFF. Okay, so it's a very light blue. Hit OK. Whoops. Go to the second knot. This will be 4A4688. And this is sort of a dark blue purple color. And we need 5 knots here. So if you click next to if you click the knot and then click next to it, it'll duplicate it. So just move it over. We don't have to be super precise with the position of these, just somewhat evenly spaced. 5 5 knots, white, blue, white, blue, white, blue. Hit OK. And then the angle on this will be 133. This is our front layer, right? Like this. And that's all we need for this one. So turn that off, and then the front depth layer, we're going to duplicate it, turn off that top layer, right click, go to layer styles, another gradient overlay. And this will just be edit the gradient. This first color is going to be 180457, and then the second is going to be 3512A1. And then this is going to have 6 knots. So same thing, just click next to it to duplicate them. And we don't need super accurate position, just eyeball it. That looks pretty good. Hit OK. This is our back layer. It's our front layer. Now if we hit this, turn on this top front depth that is just the white, and we come and set it to multiply, now we're going to start to get, let's change this to full. You can see now we start to get the edges here. And we can actually, if you're not seeing it really well, come to curves, add curves to the layer, and we're just going to increase, increase the contrast. Come to third here. Try half. Yeah, you can just play around with curves a little bit, or you can go back and adjust the lights, but we're just trying to boost the contrast. What's going on here? Yeah, so come into the front depth, and let's roll down some of the intensities, so we can get some of those details. Front final, and that looks a little bit better. Yeah, see, we're getting that a little bit more, and we're also getting some fringing on the edges. So just go ahead and we're going to add a simple choker to get rid of that, and set to 1.5. There we go, gets rid of it. Looking great. Now let's go back. We're going to go to project, grab the back and the back depth, drop it to a new comp, single composition, hit OK. Back 2, rename to back final. And this top layer, we're going to do, let's move the CTI along here. There we go. This top layer, do layer styles. This is just a color overlay, right? And this color is going to be 20001F. So it's just a really dark red magenta. Duplicate the back depth, turn off the top one, right click, go to layer styles, gradient overlay. This is the last bit of the gradients. So here we go. This is, first one is 6D, 1D, 7D. Second knot is B21, E5B. Third one, this is D6982C. Then the last one here will be DFB217. Set the first dot location to 19%, the second to 24, third to 34, and then the fourth to 43. Hit OK. And then this angle should be 292. There we go. You might have to adjust this depending on your text, but turn on that first back depth layer, and then we're going to set this to multiply, and there we go. We're going to add an adjustment layer right here. Call this CC, and we're going to add a curves on this, and then we'll also add a hue and saturation to it. For the curve, just give this slight S curve. Oops. Let's bring this down to quarter. Slight S curve. Like this. And then the saturation, bring it up to 25. And you can play with those colors and numbers all you want if you want to dial it in. All right. Now we have to create the highlight. So we're getting there. We are getting close. New composition. We're going to call this highlight. Hit OK. Whoop, actually, for this composition, we're going to do 3535 by 1080. Grab the rounded shape layer tool, rounded rectangle tool, double click, just add to the whole thing. On the right rectangle path, unlink these two. This is going to be 228 by 996. Rounded will be 180. Alright, and get rid of the stroke. We're going to just do a white fill on this, right? And we're going to go to add repeater. Pull that up. Under the repeater, we'll do 11 copies. Transform repeater under position. This will be 243. There we go. And then the scale, and make sure to unlink them, will be right here. Will be 79% by 97%. And there we go. There is our highlight. Just put it somewhere in the center. We'll do a new solid. Hit OK. Add a gradient ramp to this. Oh, turns out there is another gradient. This one is easy though. Come here. There'll be D85, E92. And then the second color will be 5C0076. Move to the sides. 540, copy to 540. Move the solid underneath the shape layer and set to alpha matte. Right, that's perfect. Looks great. And then last thing here, here's an effect I've never ever used before. Add an adjustment layer, set it to the top. Come over here, type in CC slant. Never used this. And then set it to 27. Oh, it looks great. Move that shape layer over. Okay. We're going to drag into, that's not what I want to do. Drag this highlight into a new comp. We'll call this final. Do composition settings. We'll set this to 4000 by 3000. Oh, that's great. Go to front, grab that cam and camera again, copy, paste it in here. Make sure this highlight is a 3D. There we go. Perfect angle. So at 0, we're gonna drag it off, hit the position, and then at 2 seconds, we're gonna drag it all the way to the right. So this is our highlights animation. That's perfect. All right, now we can go on to the main comp. We're gonna grab the front final and the back final, drop it into a new composition. This is the last one. Hit OK. This front final 2, we're gonna just call it star render. This will be the main thing. Do Control K. This is a regular size comp, 1920 by 1080. Oh, that's perfect. Now do a new solid. Hit OK. Add a gradient ramp. This black is black. The white is going to be a dark purple. Way down here. And let's change it to radial. And swap the colors. There we go. Move the purple to the right. Move the black to the top left. There we go. Now we can move this forward. There you go. Put the black at the bottom, the front, and there we go. We can position it just about like that. You may have to scale yours up. Just make sure these two are in the same position. You may have to scale both of them up or down, depending on what your text says, how much room you have, how you want it to appear on screen. Under front final, I forgot a thing. We're going to duplicate this front layer. We're going to delete the layer styles. We're going to do a fill. Come up here and do 8196FF. That's perfect. Add a glow to this. Change the threshold to 30%. The radius to 20% or 20. Hit to add. And then go ahead and bring down the opacity till we get something maybe a little bit like, maybe down to 18%, 15%, something like this to get a little blow action going on. Come back to the render. There we go. That looks great. Alright, now we're going to create a new layer, new adjustment layer. We're going to call this grain. Come up to add grain. Set to final. Set the intensity to 1.25 and the size to 0.5. You might want to turn this layer off. It is a render hog. Grain is a render hog. Layer new adjustment layer underneath grain. We're going to call this a blur. No CRT TVs were sharp at all, so at least not compared to today's televisions. So we're going to add a bit of a blur to it. Gaussian blur. Set it to 5. Make sure repeat edge pixels is on. Layer new adjustment layer. Another one. We're going to call this, add this Venetian blinds. I'm going to call it scan lines. And then we'll set the transition to 88, direction to 90, and then the width to 7. Layer solid settings. Make sure this is black. Hit OK. And we can just bring the opacity down to that to maybe like 20%. Here's our scan lines. What else do we need? We need an exposure wiggle. We're going to add a layer new, another adjustment layer. Call this exposure. And we're going to alt-click this, and because the CRT TVs were a little wonky, we're going to wiggle the exposure just by a hair. And we'll call, say, wiggle, open parentheses, 24,0.1. So it's very subtle. You'll notice it, but it's not going to be, yeah, so you can see it there. A tiny bit of flicker going on. And then we do another adjustment layer. Actually, no, not an adjustment layer. We need a layer new null object. Come down here, call this wiggle. Because a lot of titles and graphics in the 80s and even into the 90s weren't created with computers. They were used film, and so there was wiggle to a lot of times, a little wiggle to the titles. So we're going to add that. Position, alt-click, wiggle. We're going to do 24,0.5. Means this null is going to wiggle, and then we're just going to link these to the null. Oh, that's great. Now we just have to add in the highlight final. Bring that in like this. Let's see where we're at. Whoa. That's so huge. Come back to highlight final. What if we change it to 71%? That's great. Come back to render. Let's see what this looks like. And we can scale it down in here to about like this, right? We're going to duplicate the highlight final. Actually call this glow on this layer. We'll do a Gaussian blur. And this will be 165. Huge blur. And then set it to add. Oh, now we're getting close. Duplicate the layer again, and we're there. Boom. And we just move the highlight layers. We'll do a pink for this. We're gonna move it to 1 second so they don't come on until after the text comes up. Yeah, I'll bring the scan lines down to about 10%. And now you have your animation coming up next. The gradient here needs a little bit of work, a little bit of shifting here going on, but I'll leave that up to you guys. It's in back depth. This actually back final is where it's at. That's the bottom layer, gradient overlay. All you gotta do is move these around, back a little bit. There we go, something like that. And we have a little bit more, looks a little bit better. You can change the text and the colors to whatever you want to. You can do whatever you'd like. But thanks for watching. I hope you liked the tutorial, and like and subscribe. Thanks.